Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs, discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
All right, welcome to Laid Back Law. It's only been a week, but a lot has happened. Two subjects. We're going down, well, literally last week to this week. Number one, the Daniel Penny trial. And I'm not sure, were you following that as well, Ian and Ron?
A little bit, yeah.
Sure.
Okay, well,
as much as we could.
Good news about that. It was very confusing on Friday because they got into a problem. The jury appeared to be hanging. The judge allowed the district attorney, and you guys just tell me where I'm wrong, to remove the top level charge and go back into deliberation on a lower charge. I had made the argument at some point, I don't know, I have phone conversations and I have different shows, but my argument was that the judge actually hooked up Daniel Penny. And I'll explain my crazy reasoning. I felt because it was so controversial that it might damage the case and make it easier to overturn on appeal. And even if it didn't damage the case, because they removed the top level charge, Daniel Penny never faced any longer the heavier charge. He now had to battle out the lower level charge. So that was going to be the max. And then potentially, if the jury was to hang again, well, then he could only be recharged with the lower level charge. If he was convicted, God forbid, it would be easier on appeal to maybe get it. But it turned out that the jury took the whole decision out of everybody's hands and they said not guilty. Did that surprise you guys?
Not terribly. Based on the facts, I was like, I suspect that's probably where the jury's going. And the jury, when they see like, oh, hey, we're taking away this top level charge, I don't know that would have, like, juries get affected by all sorts of little things. And I wonder if the jury kind of went, well, maybe this whole thing is kind of a farce if they're taking that away, right?
Yeah, I was wondering that because, I mean, if they're arguing, that means that some of them had to say, hey, he needs to go away for the manslaughter charge. How did they go, okay, he's got to go away for the manslaughter charge, to now on the lower level, they go, you know what, he's just not guilty at all. I mean, that is an interesting paradigm. And I'm wondering if you are correct, Ian, that maybe when they took away the top charge, maybe that convinced the jurors who are ready to convict to say, oh, well, maybe it's all BS if they're just going to remove it.
I'm going to suggest to Ian to turn off his camera and come back in.
I'm just fixing it. It'll be fixed in a second here.
Let me hypothesize.
Oh, there he is. There he is. Yeah. I think you guys are right.
That was the reason, let me make sure I'm on the good mic, why, from what I understood, the judge didn't want to tell the jury that the dismissal of the charge or the setting aside was tantamount to an acquittal, because he didn't want to influence them on the lower charge. And I don't know if they heard that argument or that debate or they got wise to it, but I think that the judge was trying to conceal the manner in which the top charge was being dismissed or set aside, so as not to allow them to come to that conclusion, which they seem to have come to anyhow.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm happy that the jury, I think, came to the correct conclusion from what I've seen. I feel like there should never have been charges brought to begin with. And that this verdict, I think, potentially is going to harm BLM and their ilk in combination with the election results more than anything. And BLM needs to find better, quote, victims.
They also need to find better public statements, because the whole, A, threats to riot, and B,
we need vigilantes on our own.
Yeah, I was like, so you're not against vigilantes, you're just against vigilantes for the, like, and you see this as like a sides thing? Because I'm pretty sure Penny wasn't like, hey, I'm anti-black or anything like that. He was just, hey, this guy looks, sounds like he might kill somebody on this subway. So maybe I should step in.
it was all a no-brainer from the beginning. Like it's straight up no-brainer in any sane universe, and but for the lynch mob and AOC, rallying the lynch mob. But I don't know if Eric, if you can see this K2 synthetic cannabinoid, not ketamine. I made a mistake on Sunday. K2. If you
is this like Molly or whatever?
No, it's a chemical synthetic cannabis. I don't know what it is at all, but I'm just on the what is it? The CDC for what it's worth. Synthetic. The guy was popped up or hepped up on synthetic cannabinoid K2, and it says synthetic cannabinoids can harm your health, agitation, irritability, confusion, concentration. I think any cannabis can do that. Synthetic cannabinoids cause other health problems, breathing problems, gastrointestinal problems, heart attack, fast heart rate, high blood pressure, and stroke. I mean, everything.
To be fair, that sounds like an aspirin.
Well, no.
Okay, Mrs. Sotomayor.
No,
just
it's K2.
When you hear the list of side effects for anything, and especially,
well, your timing on that, I'm sorry, Ian, though, because of Sotomayor, where she equates aspirin to, shall we say, assigning body parts on children. Obviously they're equal.
She didn't really say that. To be, it was a rhetorical question. People ask rhetorical, in the Socratic questioning by judges. That is an opportunity for a lawyer to do as the lawyer for Tennessee did there, to step up and say, here's why that's not a good analogy. She didn't say that the two are the same. I mean, it's really the government's case and the ideological case by Sotomayor, which is what she's there to do, is to carry the ideological ball, is so weak.
I'm confused. I thought she was there as a Supreme Court justice to uphold the Constitution. I just got confused.
No, Ron is saying she's playing devil's advocate.
That's not why she was given the job. No.
Well, Ron, I disagree with you, Ron, because I think she was analogizing it to some extent in terms of the risk of side effects. Where I said that she's an idiot for the comparison is that she's confounding side effects with intended purpose. And so, when they say confusion and irritability is a side effect of cannabis or K2, I wouldn't argue that's a side effect. I'd say that's why people do it. So you get confused and you get paranoid. But no, but dude, I don't know what's up with K2, like synthetic cannabis or cannabinoid, whatever the hell that is, versus regular, because regular, as crazy as it makes people, I don't think anyone's ever gotten they might have gotten a heart attack from a panic attack, from a badass trip, from a strong marijuana.
Psychosis. THC has been proven, and I know a lot of people get really pissed off about it, but there's a reason that they say don't let people under 25 take it, because while the brain is development, there have been a lot of very legitimate studies showing that there can be a psychosis tied in with cannabis. Not everybody, but especially people who have, predetermined factors or things like that. There's a distinct tie. I've interviewed a psychiatrist who literally treats people at an institution in England.
I ask you guys, why does this matter? We're living in a world where the argument for prosecuting Neely was.
You mean Penny? Neely's dead.
Yeah, that's unforgettable. The argument for prosecuting Penny was he killed a black man. It doesn't matter. Like, if all you're doing is telling me all the reasons why it's credible that he was defending someone else, those facts that are irrelevant. Because as you said, Viva, it was a no-brainer from go. It was always political. It was always cynical. It is always, but it's chilling to think how prosecutors are willing to ruin people's lives for political purposes like this. It's bad enough what people do in the regular political shenanigans, but this prosecutorial abuse is mind-boggling. But
now just remember that when they charge somebody who you don't like, because it applies there too.
Well, no, that's fair enough. But even when Hunter Biden was charged with the gun charge, Barnes and I were talking about the fact that it's an arguably unconstitutional requirement in any event to condition gun ownership on not taking drugs. And I'm having someone come on Monday who's, I think I can tell the story, but someone's coming on Monday to talk about the fact that like other people were charged with this, and the constitutional argument was always raised. Like you say, if you take drugs, you can't own a gun. That kind of seems like an infringement on the shall not be infringed. So there was the constitutional argument, but it's the fair application, not the fair abuse of the law. So
let me ask you about. I think the much more interesting question is the one that Eric started out with, which is what. And I think, Viva, you seem to probably, talking to Bob, maybe you got some insight into this as well. What do we now think? It's all speculation, I guess, but what do we really think was going on in the jury room on Friday?
Hold on. What day did this happen? This happened last week. The acquittal was on Monday.
Correct. Friday was the hang.
So Robert and I haven't yet talked about the latest development. I don't know, because the confusion on the Friday was that some were under the impression that the judge was hanging on the top charge, and then if they didn't get a conviction on the lower charge, would retry on the hung. Because
no. The judge said no. The judge did come out and say that they have to clear the top charge. That if
well, no. I know what the judge did.
The second one without the top.
No, I'm just saying in terms of what the confusion was on the Friday itself, because for a second the confusion on the internet was that it sounded like the judge was holding on to the hung charge in order to try to get a conviction on the lower charge and then retry potentially on the hung charge because it would be hung and not dismissed. That was the confusion. But the bottom line, he said dismiss, but don't tell them it's an acquittal. So what was going on? Like, how do they hesitate on the top charge and then come back and acquit on the lower charge? Which, I mean, I think
and is it possible that let's face it, they weren't sequestered over the weekend. They went home. Obviously, everyone in the world, everyone in their families, everyone on the internet is talking about this. So of course even those who are leaning towards conviction, maybe really, is it just possible they just actually let the sunshine in and
Ron, I think you've got a point. Even if you're trying to quote avoid the news, it would have been impossible we like having to walk by every paper with, blinders on, make sure you're not on social media or anything else, because that was the headline everywhere. Top charge dismissed everywhere. Headline. It would be very hard to avoid seeing that headline unless you're just, watching cat videos.
Oh, you guys are talking about Daniel Penny?
Yeah.
No, we're talking about cat videos. Actually, those are some.
Hey, that's
Have you got a problem with cat videos?
No, I was thinking.
By them.
Have you guys seen Kifnis's latest cat saying, "Look, I'm gay"? Have you guys? Let me get it because it's a work of art. Hold on. Okay, carry on with the conversation of seriousness.
Yeah, but the charge. So in New York, for when you're doing a criminal trial, the way they do it, so you don't have the horse trading in the jury room, is that a lot of times juries come to compromise verdicts. We all don't really agree on the top charge, but we'll give them the lower charge. So in an attempt to stop that, New York law says that you have to go through the counts in succession. So whatever the top count is, you have to come to a conclusion of the top count, and then you can move to the lower count. So in this particular case, the top count was manslaughter in the second degree. Now, manslaughter in the second degree, if you're guilty of manslaughter in the second degree, you are also guilty of criminally negligent homicide, because to be guilty of manslaughter, you automatically essentially guilty of the lesser charge of criminal negligent
You were even more reckless.
Yes. So that's why the judge says, if you're guilty of manslaughter, don't even go to the criminal negligent homicide, because it's inherent that you're guilty of the lesser charge. So
I got the hair fixed.
I thought you were doing it on religious lines, Eric. I was going to be offended.
No, it's on hair. We have the hair challenged on the top and the luscious locks on the bottom.
Oh, there we go.
So when it comes to what the judge did that Friday is, now this never has happened in New York. So if the jury has to come to a decision on the top count, either acquittal or conviction, before you can move to the lower count. But in New York, if the jury can't come or is hung on the top count, you're supposed to declare a mistrial on everything and then start it all over again. The top count in the law, because you're supposed to mistrial everything. But the judge in this case was like, well, hey, what do you guys want to do? We're going to mistrial it. But the prosecution went and said, well, we want to do something. We want to dismiss the top count. Now, if you dismiss that top count, the manslaughter charge, jeopardy's attached because your jury's been sworn, you're in deliberations. So the judge made sure to legislate to the prosecutor, if you drop this top count, it's dismissed with prejudice. You can never bring this back. So the prosecutor took that gamble, said, okay, we're going to drop the top, because there was no way they can go back to that charge since it was dismissed by the prosecution. So now you only had criminally negligent homicide.
Yeah, and Nate, a lot of people were, they were saying, well, at least who was it? The defense argued if you do this, it incentivizes overcharging so that you can then drop at a later date.
Correct.
And then, I was highlighting the corruption, and then some people are like, well, that's not corruption. That's just standard operating procedure. I mean,
no, it is the first time it's happened in New York. That's why if you touch any criminal defense attorney in New York, they say this never happens. This is the first time this ever happens. And even the judge, when he was talking about it, the judge said specifically, I don't really know, but I'll take a chance, right? He's taking a chance with this guy's life. So
Nate, now confirm with everybody. Did I not tell you on the phone that I thought that the judge was being deliberate in gaming the system?
You did. So
really quickly, I want to interrupt this podcast with some art.
I know what I'm listening. Oh God, it's so good. That's loop one. Look at me. That's loop one. Put in the beat. It gets even better. You can imagine. Wait. It brings back a viral video from 10 years ago. The greatest video ever. Okay, after this part. Why are you gay?
Why are you gay? Why are you gay? Why are you gay? You are gay.
All right, everybody can go check.
Has everybody seen that original interview?
I didn't see that. No.
Go look up Why Are You Gay on YouTube. It was a serious interview. I think it's from Nigeria, and the guy calls on a woman who's a lesbian who might have been colloquially referring to as trans, and he's the first question, she sits down, goes, "Why are you gay? You are gay." It's like, why am I gay? What makes me gay? You are gay. And it's just classic. And that's Kifness, by the way, who I'm going to get to give me a tutorial so that I can use my switchboard, the one that he has, or he's got a better one. But
here it comes.
Which board?
Oh, it's like
Viva's always adding to his repertoire to shame us all.
Well, dude, my attempts thus far have been so bad.
Okay, hold on. A lot of people, not to bury the lead, a lot of people don't know this. Viva is a classically trained pianist.
I thought you were going to say Viva is gay.
Well, I don't know. You're the one who shared the video, so you have to share it for yourself.
I think he sort of just said that anyway.
Oh man!
All right. I would say back to Penny and Nate trying to speak law.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I don't really look at it as this is like a weird thing. A lot of people are coming to the conclusion that this is a weird thing for the jury to do. There's a fallacy that's built into the question about this, which is that there's a great deal of logic employed by a jury. And I don't know, and that people are continually consistent in their positions rather than just being, I mean, in theory, you can look at it, there's two possibilities here. Either they were ideologically rooted in their position, right? And that they were like, look, I'm not allowing Daniel Penny to be convicted, or there's no way I'm letting Daniel Penny go free. And that's what we tend to start with, that assumption that there was that mesh of people, that blend of people in the jury. Or it could be that they really were going back and forth about, did he really die as a result of Daniel Penny's actions versus someone else's actions, rather than being ideologically driven. And at a certain point, you might just give up. Over the weekend, you're like, how many more days are we going to be here? And I think that there's a certain thing, whether it's because of ideology or it's because of rationale about the case, I think that to just ignore the fact that the jury could be like, I don't want to have to come back here another 3 days. It doesn't matter that much to me. And this other side seems more intransigent than I am. So it doesn't have to be an ideology thing. It could be ideology, or it could be their belief in their side as far as, did he, as a matter of law, commit this crime or not? But at a certain point, they get worn down and saying, "I don't want to spend the week."
Joe, isn't that case stronger though on a
thing.
Friday? No, isn't that case a little stronger on a Friday though versus a Monday? Because
No,
Monday.
because I think over the weekend they're talking to their friends like, "Oh my god, we're doing this for another week. Like,
Well,
do we get a mistrial on this one?"
I disagree with that because I think logically what the jury did honestly doesn't make sense. But I'm not, juries sometimes shock you that way. In terms of if you think he's guilty for the manslaughter, right? On Friday, there were jurors who thought he was absolutely guilty for the manslaughter. That's why they hung. So if you think based on the facts he's guilty of manslaughter, there is no possible way now, logically speaking, you can think he's not guilty of the criminally negligent homicide.
I don't know where you disagree with me. I'm not saying that they're acting in logic. I'm saying they're acting as far as just being worn down and saying, I don't want to do this anymore.
I was pushing back that they're worn down a little more on a Friday than they are on a Monday.
Because I think they don't want to look at another week of doing this until a judge says, okay, you're still hung. It could be 2 days, 3 days. We don't know how many days it's going to be.
I honestly the other thing there's a thing here in Canada. There's a charge vehicular manslaughter, and the criteria for it are exactly the same as manslaughter. Mm-hmm. And the reason why it exists is because it was getting to be really hard to convince juries to convict on manslaughter with vehicle, with driving anything. So they created this other charge that is actually exactly the same thing, and juries are much happier to convict on it. So we might just have a situation of the jury going, well, okay, we've acquitted, this thing has been taken away. Well, we're not convicting on this because we think it was more likely the other thing. And sometimes that can just come down to what is the name of the charge? It's
on the other hand, though, along the lines of what Joe was saying, one thing that did occur to me is that remember when they voted, when they hung on Friday, they didn't know they didn't know they'd be brought back on Monday. They probably figured we're done. It's true. They could have. The
judge told them. The judge told them that we're dropping the top, and we only want you to consider the second charge and come back. So that's why I think Joe was saying they retired because he told them they're dropping the top count, but we only want you to consider the second count.
Just before I drop out because I got to go to do my stream in a few minutes. I think what was I going to say? They're definitely reading the news. I think they heard about the controversy. They might have heard about the politicking by the judge, and I think they also saw that the public sentiment of a potential acquittal in this case was far different than a potential acquittal in Chauvin, and that they didn't feel the social pressure to go in there and lynch the guy on Monday, and might have actually heard some of the commentary saying this is outrageous. He should never have been charged in the first place.
Diva, that's very possible, but it's entirely speculative, and there's no way any of us are ever going to know. We're never going to know whether that's right or not. I mean,
no, but it's true. Right. But something doesn't make sense. Something doesn't make sense about how they were hung on the upper charge and then judged even quicker to acquit on the lesser charge. But
hey, I do want to ask you guys, what about the Jordan Williams case? The black guy who
did the same thing.
The same thing
with the black Daniel Penny.
Yeah, so the black guy who gets in the train with his girlfriend, the guys, there's a couple of homeless guys doing the same thing, but the homeless guy goes up to the black guy with his girlfriend, and the black guy pushes the homeless guy. So the homeless guy then slaps the black guy's girlfriend. The black guy pulls out a knife, stabs the guy to death, and then he's arrested for manslaughter. But his manslaughter is manslaughter with a weapon.
But hold on, I agree with this in the chat. Not even close to the same thing.
Oh no!
And yes, you could shout that.
Why is it not? Why is it not close to the same thing?
That's my first.
It is not.
Let me finish spelling it out. So after the person was stabbed, he was charged. It went to the grand jury, and the grand jury said that the black guy was defending his girlfriend, his defense of others, and didn't indict him. Now the key piece here is that his argument was that the guy, by slapping his girlfriend, gave him the defense of others. But the prosecution's argument with that was, let's say if a woman slaps a cop, the cop can't just pull out a gun and shoot her. If somebody slaps you, you can't just pull out a knife and stab them. So they were saying that this was similar to Penny, in which if you're making the argument excessive force, well, this is excessive force. Someone was slapped and then the other person essentially killed them. So that's
okay. Now can I jump in and say why is that? Because restraining somebody and stabbing somebody are two different things. Mm-hmm. Let's be right from the jump. One had a weapon and used the weapon on the other.
You're saying Jordan Williams is more convictable because of the deadly weapon. What? You're saying Williams is more convictable because he's using a deadly weapon.
I think so. Yes. In my personal opinion, he used a deadly weapon. There are more circumstances. The intent there. What do you use a knife for? Are you trying to block? Are you trying to? No, you are attacking somebody. That
The
is
law
an attack.
agrees with you. The law agrees with what everything you're saying. That because he's using a weapon, now he's clearly using deadly force.
Correct.
Just because Daniel Penny has him in a chokehold, I mean, whether or not that's deadly force, I mean, there's certainly
correction. Daniel Penny and 2 others were restraining him. We always leave those guys out, but they were there.
Correct. Okay. But the point is, is Daniel Penny using lethal force or not? You could say, well, he's dead. He must have been using lethal force. Or you could say, no, he was still alive when he left him and he wasn't using a weapon, which is a deadly weapon like a knife. And accordingly, that he's not engaging in deadly force. So the level of force that he's engaging there is questionable, as opposed to you start slashing a knife around, that's using deadly force right then and there. And many more people die from knives than from guns. So, and
intent also, Joe, isn't it was it mens rea or whatever, isn't intent relevant? Because Penny was obviously trying to restrain him by all witnesses who were there. If the intent is to restrain, now you can't tell me putting a knife in somebody is trying to restrain them. Now you can say you're defending, you're attacking, whatever, but that's completely different. Using a knife and stabbing somebody is not the same as trying to restrain somebody that may have gone out of hand, in my opinion.
Well, if you're trying to convince me that Daniel Penny should not have been charged and that he was innocent here, you're preaching to the choir. You don't need to convince me of that. I'm on the same page as you. I'm simply I'm recognizing the fact that the Williams situation is escalated on both fronts. Yes. And that's something we need to recognize. It's escalated in the provocation by the end victim, in that the Jordan Neely didn't touch anyone physically. He didn't engage anyone with any sort of physical presence. So he was arguably less of a threat, right? Because he hasn't hit anyone, as opposed to the victim by Williams, where the guy hit his girlfriend. So there was actual, physical engagement that's going on here. And on the other side of it, when the person's stepping in to defend others, when you have Daniel Penny, he's not using a deadly weapon, whereas Jordan Williams clearly was. So it's escalated on really both sides of it. But the law agrees with you, what you're saying, Eric, that you do not have a right to engage in lethal force if the person who you're engaging with is not engaging in lethal force. Correct. So I 100% agree with you that if anyone was going to be charged here, it should have been Williams, if we were living in a world that was rooted in law rather than political ideology.
Oh, hold on here. Hold on. I love this chat.
I don't know if you all got silent because you just agree with everything I said. Or
No. I 100% agree with what you said, but I just like people in the chat. Eric so badly wants to be a real lawyer, he can't even see what Nate's trying to imply. Really? I think I got it. Did I miss what you were implying, Nate?
No. Why would anyone want to be a real lawyer?
I know, and and I never claimed to be a lawyer. So thank you very much. Thanks for coming by. Anyway,
you got well. I think at the end of the day, that what these two cases show is that I think Jordan Williams, he is obviously more culpable because you are talking about an illegal weapon, right? But I do think in Neely's case, I would disagree with Joe in this sense. You don't have to hit someone to employ deadly physical force. The threat of deadly physical force is enough, or the threat of force. And on that train, Jordan Neely was threatening to harm people. He lunged at someone, and a woman who testified said, he lunged at us and I started protecting my child. So even so that the threat of imminent bodily harm is what brings you up to the where you can restrain the person. So I think that's when that goes to Eric's point, where the restraint wasn't meant with deadly physical force. But Joe was definitely correct where the stabbing of the other victim was employed deadly physical force.
Right.
The outcomes are the same, but the way you got there is different.
Right. That's why I was arguing that they're not the same. There are parallels in there, but they're not the same, in my opinion.
Yeah, but then you would also admit at the end that even though there are parallels, that Jordan Williams, if anyone should have been charged in Jordan, it would be more Jordan than Daniel.
Yes, in my opinion, absolutely, and that's why I'm saying they're not the same. Similar and is not the same. Correct?
Yeah. That's what we said. We said it was similar. We didn't say it was the same.
Okay. Well, people keep going, oh, he's the Black Daniel Penny. I'm like, no. He's not the Black Daniel Penny. Sorry, you sound like Chank, but it really does feel like, people are trying to make it an absolute parallel. No, God, no.
I shared a video with you which I show with my audience, and I think it raises an interesting question because the
Oh, I
law
know
is
Lionel.
designed to better society, and I want people who are not from New
Is
York to appreciate what
That's a
being
claim.
on a subway train can be like. So this is not Jordan Neely, but this is the type of activity that I picture happening with Jordan Neely shortly before Daniel Penny happened.
I'm
I have
not
no
going to
idea.
get in trouble with YouTube, right? There's no
I
violence or anything.
I played this and I didn't get any sort of.
Well, I can actually pay you the Jason Williams thing so you can actually see it, and it's all censored, so it'll keep it monetized.
Well, I mean, this because I'm curious what you all think.
I wouldn't bet on that because
what? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I got dinged for censoring out the what is it?
The United
the
Healthcare?
Luigi Mangione shooting.
You can't.
I had a
Yeah,
big
you can't show.
thing all
All right,
over
if this
it,
is
and,
if this is gone
There's
by,
no physical contact between him and anyone else, and that's
Okay.
really the question that I have is what would the law want us to do in a situation like this? If you're a Marine and you can protect others in a situation like this where this guy doesn't lay a finger on anyone, but picture how menacing this moment is if you're sitting on the train. If you just it's 40 seconds.
It would be called assault. That's assault.
Yeah,
that's assault. That's classic assault. Pretend
be arrested for
armed.
that.
But matter of fact, you can actually defend people from that. That's assault. That's what I
picture. That's what I picture the Daniel Penny situation being. That's exactly what I picture, like him just doing that sort of thing where he's just menacing the hell out of people without a weapon. And it's just like when you're sitting there trapped like that, you feel really like, if you're weaker than him and you feel like you can't take that guy, it's a terrifying situation. You feel as if you're at the mercy of a lunatic. That's what you feel like in that moment. You're at the mercy of a lunatic for I don't know how many minutes I'm going to be stuck on this train. I'm at the mercy of whether or not a lunatic decides that he wants to make me his next victim. And that's an awful situation. And it's very narcissistic. I mean, if it's the extent that he has a mind, it's very narcissistic of just like, I don't care about the fact that I'm making all these people feel. In fact, that's actually, I want all these people to feel terrified. That's why
it's not that he doesn't care. This was his statement. I assume that this was post Daniel Penny that this took place.
That video that I shared with you, I don't know. I saw it came out this week, so I don't know if it's.
There's a lot of that going on in the subway, from what I understand. I'm not in New York, but I've heard that there's tons of videos and.
You could film that any random
any day. Yeah, that's the subway in New York, unfortunately.
The point is, this guy, I think, he's making a statement that no one will stop me.
Mm-hmm.
If someone does stop me, I'll hurt him and I'll get away with it.
Yeah.
And if in the unlikely event that someone here can stop me, that person will end up being the one who gets in trouble.
Well, and somebody pointed out, what are the laws? Okay, there's assault, and I agree, Nate, that's assault. Isn't there laws involving provocation? Like, like you deserve to get hit? Like if you go too far, or I forgot the term for it.
Well, but we're really talking about justification. Justification, because if someone is engaging in criminal activity, you can defend yourself from that criminal activity, and assault is one of those things. So even like assault can take different forms too. Let's say if I pull out an empty gun and you don't know it's empty and pointed at you, I can't kill you, but that's clearly assault, right? That's assault with a deadly weapon, even though the weapon is empty.
You have to have a reasonable apprehension of serious bodily harm.
Yeah, and I think somebody coming at you and pretending they're going to hit you, that's enough where someone could employ self-defense to stop that what appears to be an imminent threat of death.
Isn't there a specific thing though that involves like fighting words? I swear I've heard the term fighting words before, and there's
that's for First Amendment stuff.
What is fighting words? I'll ask you, constitutionalist Ron Coleman, what impact, if any, do fighting words have as far as affecting the rights of everyone involved in a fighting word situation?
If you know the words, don't say the fighting words. Definitely get demonetized.
I don't want the George Carlin fighting words.
No, those aren't fighting words. It's solely a matter of, as Nate says, it's a matter of justification. Fighting words are those very, very rare beasts in constitutional law that justify prior restraint. If we say that someone is going to call for a riot, or someone is going to, I I'm allowed to. The police are allowed to arrest you if you walk up to an old man like me and say, if you don't get on the ground and kiss my sneakers, I'm going to break your skull open. Okay, so now a cop doesn't have to say, well, he's got First Amendment rights. Those are words that are meant to invite violence.
So what if you let me take it a little further, Ron? Yeah. Let's say that happened, a bunch of people are witnessing. Hell, somebody gets in on the phone and you pop the guy in the nose. Now what? What is your status if that person said that to you and everything else, and you popped them in the nose?
So then we're not talking about First Amendment. We're talking about justification.
Yeah. Okay, and that's what I wanted to know.
And if so I would have to prove that I had a reasonable apprehension that he meant it. So if it came from, one of us, it might be less reasonable than if it came from the guy on the subway.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because if it's actionable for a cop to be able to arrest him, I would think it would be actionable for you to defend yourself. Right?
Well, it happens to be that here the standards align pretty closely, but don't make that assumption, Eric.
Okay, I'm just asking. That's why
no, I know, and I'm just telling. I'm just explaining that these are two different tracks of the law, and the fighting words doctrine is, it's esoteric and very, very, almost nothing qualifies as fighting words under the First Amendment. People keep talking about yelling fire in a crowded wrongly yelling fire in a crowded theater. That's not the law. It's not good law, and it's almost virtually never the case. And
I had heard that was technically
it's a good way
not
to get
the
speed
case.
run to bad legal takes.
Right. From what I understood, that actually was the dissenting opinion on the case and isn't the law. That people have been misquoting it forever, that it's illegal to yell fire in a crowded theater, that actually is not illegal, that's a lie. So you guys can disabuse me of that or not.
It's not that it's illegal. The point is that you are correct that it is not an accurate statement of the law of an imminent danger that would justify prior restraint on speech by the state.
It could result in civil penalties if you're making that. I would think that could result in civil penalties if you're
like a stampede or something.
Yeah, if it negligently induces a stampede.
Yeah. If it actually did, yeah. But we're in all these cases we are talking about the difference between prior restraint and being penalized, because you can assault someone verbally without moving your body at all. And this now is your fighting words, Eric, is, one of the methods of intimidation on the street is to, in fact, use your body as little as possible, but to say things with your mouth or just your eyes that can scare the hell out of you. Again, though, you have once you assert self-defense, now you have to prove that you reasonably apprehended that you acted in a way to avoid that. First of all, you couldn't escape, depending on the state. Is it a stand your ground state, or there's a whole book that you can get from Branca on this for free. But these are the issues.
All right. So if I said to like Ron, come to my Zacher tonight, or I'm going to come to your house and pound the ever living snot out of you.
Well, if you're smiling, it's okay.
It depends, Joe. If it's going to be called for 9 o'clock, bring it on. But
no, it's not. It's like 7.
All right. Well, somebody wanted to share this so we get an understanding of life on the subway.
Seamus.
The New York City Transit Authority's Mental Health on Wheels program celebrates its 70th year of operating their famous mobile homeless shelters for the mentally unwell.
You love to see it. As you know, the shelters famously move the patients from neighborhood to neighborhood so that volunteers from every part of the city can easily visit the criminally insane patients. The program has proven to be an unmitigated success, with millions of brave volunteers choosing to participate every day. But it's not without its naysayers.
That's right. Critics are beginning to become concerned that allowing volunteers into these shelters creates an unsafe environment for the mentally unwell, who might be attacked while screaming at a child or threatening an elderly woman.
It's so sad how a few bad
All right, everybody, definitely check that out. I don't want to steal
that's-
all of Seamus's work here, so
That's hilarious.
but I love that premise. So everybody follow Freedom Tunes and
Yes,
check that out.
they're awesome.
Did you guys already talk about ChatGPT trying?
Oh
to,
no, Nate, we're waiting for you.
Skynet?
We'll get there. We have
Oh.
to go one more case though, because we're going to finish up with New York. We're finishing out last Friday and continuing. We have to give an opportunity. Let me see. NYC subway hookman prosthetic in face of deaf card on lap legal. I have no idea what you're saying. Somebody figure out what that was.
New York City subway hookman prosthetic in face.
There's a lot of words there, but I don't know that any of them are.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense to me, guys. Sorry. So if it kicked him, would it be okay? Depends.
If they were fighting words, that's the question. If they were real fighting words, like would that be okay?
And don't forget, even with fighting words and all this stuff, it's the imminence that's really important. It can't be I'm going to beat you up next week. It's got to be imminent. It has to be something where you're afraid of imminent touching, or what they call it, offensive contact. You got to be afraid. They don't have to hit you, but it's got to be damn close where, hey, they're you feel like they're about to.
Fair enough. Okay, so I want to finish out with the other New York case that is ongoing. And it's funny how the two kind of overlapped. It was like Penny has come to a resolution. This one is just heating up. We now have somebody who was arrested, a person of interest. They've never said that he was technically a suspect, but always a person of interest. So I want to be clear on my language and make sure I'm okay here. And I want to give.
I'm pretty sure you become a suspect after you've been arrested.
Okay, well, whatever. I want to give Ian Runkle a chance to do a victory lap. That this was not a specialized World War II assassin's gun that cost $6,000. It is, in fact, a ghost gun. And Ian, maybe you could talk about ghost guns as well.
Yeah, everybody was going, oh, it's this, it's the well rod, or it's the VP, these which is basically a modern well rod. And you can see from the video that it's not. I did a whole video pointing out when you see. So basically, this is just a pretty bog standard semi-auto that's been fitted with a suppressor. And the ghost gun just means that it's 3D printed. That's all that means. So we're going to see a whole bunch. I'm seeing already U.S. politicians who are like, we need to crack down on these, notwithstanding that where this happened, it was already not legal to have it. So it's like, what's another crackdown going to do? You can say it's double illegal. And I'm sure that the guy facing the murder bit is going to be really upset that he might also face a charge for having an illegal handgun. Okay. But, yeah, no, I mean, it was a very bog standard sort of thing. Very, very common, very sort of easily acquired, and not some specialized thing. And of course, it turns out this is not some, super mysterious assassin. It's just a guy with a grudge. Which is kind of what we were expecting here.
100%. Now, I was talking to Ian about this beforehand. Ian, I think you suffer something that is known as Gelman amnesia. And it's one of my favorite phenomena.
I don't know about that.
Well, I don't know if you've suffered from it, but a lot of people may get into it where I had people arguing that, well, NBC, ABC, CBS, all the networks said that it was, in fact, that special gun. And what
those people weren't actually reading the news very carefully, because all of those networks said it is being investigated as to whether this is a thing. And the reason why it was being investigated is because tons of people on Twitter were talking about it. So, of course, the police are going to be like, well, is it one of these? But just because something's investigated doesn't mean it's been confirmed, right? It's just, hey, we're chasing down a theory.
All right, well, fair enough. Well, Gelman amnesia, what I wanted to get into is the case. And when I say that with you, for example, because Ian, you are a gun expert, and you know guns, and there's other gun experts who are saying that. What Gelman amnesia is, it was a term created by Michael Crichton, and he named it after his friend Murray Gell-Mann, who is a Nobel Prize winner, and he deliberately borrowed that name, saying, "Hey, I'm going to use the Nobel Prize winner, put his name on it, and that makes it, even more authoritative." But the basic premise is that you, Ian, you're an expert in something like guns, and you're reading stories about this gun, and you're like, I know guns, that's just wrong. Then you might read another headline and say, oh man, that's messed up, and completely believe in it, but having the amnesia and not realizing that, well, hey, I'm an expert in this and they're wrong on that. What are the odds they're wrong on everything? And
I assume they're wrong on everything.
which is a very good assumption. So I wanted to cover that one, to do the victory lap, or have you do the victory lap. Any other thoughts on this case with Luigi? Nate, you have anything on Luigi?
No, just it's good. I want to see the extradition, how they get, because they're talking about 45 days for the extradition. So that's going to be interesting.
So Nate, what's the issue with extradition? I mean, what defenses are available to extradition that New York doesn't really have jurisdiction over? Based on the complaint, based on the criminal complaint, the four corners of the criminal complaint, New York doesn't have jurisdiction over me, and therefore that's what I would think of as the only possible.
Yeah.
What else is there?
If they haven't, usually you need an indictment or a criminal complaint before, then you have the executive sign. So it's pretty simple. But you can challenge things like, hey, there's no probable cause for an arrest, that type of thing. So sometimes they'll try to challenge the probable cause document to say, hey, they're just pointing me out versus. But generally, all of that goes away, because the only thing you need
Best
is a
of luck
judge.
on this one.
Yeah, you generally need a judge of competent jurisdiction to say there's probable cause here, and the judge in the place where they're trying to get you extradited usually takes your word up. They don't go into the facts, but sometimes they do. And if they do go into the facts, then you have like a nice little preliminary hearing about whether there's probable cause to make the determination of if you committed a crime.
Okay, this super chat is an interesting one. I think I know what video this is. A Pokemon YouTuber looked into why Luigi had Breloom, whatever that is, on his X profile, and found out it was 100% relevant to what was going on and rather fitting. Is this that video that's going around where the Pokemon character is number 282 or 283 or whatever, and then we go and see that Luigi has written 283 or 2 tweets, and family members have that number, and there's this like and the code for the insurance company is that same number for denying policies. I'm wondering if you guys have seen that. Nope. Okay. Well,
no, Pokemon related theories.
286. Sorry. I don't remember the number. Okay, 286. Somebody corrected me. I always am suspect on one of those. Like if we go, oh, there's a number there. Oh, and it happens to be the same number as that we sometimes can. Kind of like Friday the 13th. What was the actual cause for Friday the 13th other than a movie? I've heard the Templar. Some people say that it's Judas Iscariot. I'm saying it's known as an unlucky number. How many times do we say, oh, it's an unlucky number? Let's go backdate history and find every bad event that's ever happened on Friday the 13th and attribute it to this. You guys have any thoughts?
Well, I would say April 20th or was it 22nd? The Hitler's birthday is probably the worst day, or even 9/11. A lot of bad stuff happens on.
Well, April 20th is also 420 day, and we have a Canadian here. So is that why it is? It's like everybody needs to smoke a J to get over what's happened.
It may be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Bad things happen on this day, so now you go find any bad thing that happens and blame it on that day.
They legalized it here, so it's not really a celebration anymore.
Oh, well, there you go. I
don't know what the problem is with Friday. I don't know. I mean, 13s we know are associated with bad luck, but I never quite understood the Friday part either.
Yeah.
The only one I remember is something that it was the Templars that the Pope released a decree to take out the Templars, and it was dated the Friday the 13th or something. That
sounds like bad luck for Templars, but I mean
right.
That was a pretty elite group.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens. Yeah, Brad's right. It's also a baker's dozen, but that's lucky.
So's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Everyone loves Friday.
Yeah, I agree. Unless you're dealing with Jason Voorhees, who's in the thumbnail. then you really don't like that Friday. You don't like it at all. Okay, so one more thing, and then we can get into the scariest story of all. But did you guys see that the Duke lacrosse quote victim has now come out 18 years later and recanted, saying she lied?
Well, that's
made the whole thing up.
Yeah, that's because she's
That's
doing
not
like a
news.
life. She's doing a life sentence for second-degree murder, right? So.
I know, but
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah, she committed either manslaughter or murder. So she's in prison now doing a bid for that. She killed her boyfriend. So
anyway, I'm just kind of like, I guess the people who are falsely accused are just screwed. And I'm asking now because Nate, you just did a video about somebody who I believe is going to prison for doing just that.
8 years. 8 years. Eleanor Woods got 8 years. Yeah.
Tell us the story, and
right,
can we get more, please?
Yes. So, Eleanor Woods is from the UK, and she started claiming that men were trafficking her and other things. So she had something like 7 or 8 different complaints, and every one kind of like you can see she at first she just said this guy blanked me at a party. Then she would retract the statement. The guy would get arrested, and then they would let him go. So the person would just be happy to be let go. So every false allegation started escalating. Like then she would say she would be trafficked, until eventually one time she said that she had beat herself up, and said that she was beaten up by this Asian gang from a local businessman. But police then found the evidence that she had actually beat herself up. So they let that guy go, but didn't charge her. Then on the last one, so now they haven't charged her for like 6 times. So the last time she's walking down the street, some guy literally asked her for a lighter to light a cigarette. She then goes home, buys like all this stuff, buys a hammer, beats herself with the hammer, goes to the police and says that this guy did this horrible stuff to her. The guy's arrested, spends almost 6 weeks in jail, and then so he's released after they see the video of her actually buying the hammer and walking around, because they have all these CCTVs in the UK, so they see her on she looks perfect going into her apartment alone, and then when the police get there, she's all beat up. So she was trying to get these guys locked up for life sentences. So the judge, usually they would give you like a year for a false. So what they did, they said, okay, we're going to charge you for all 9 of the false allegations, and gave her 8 years in prison. So that's what happened with that case. So she got 8 years in prison for her false allegations, because they charged her, instead of saying we'll give you 1 year for all 9, they gave her a year for each.
That's a tremendous frustration for a lot of accused people, because if you've been falsely accused, they're like, and when it falls apart and it's such an obvious lie, the question they always have is, so what's happening to them?
Nothing, because they're afraid that people won't come forward. And I'm tired of that, because I feel like I understand the idea you don't want people to be afraid to report a crime. However, I feel that people false reporting should
it's
serve
kind of a
penalty.
bad thing. Yeah.
No, I mean, which crime is worse, the actual crime, or somebody falsely accused of the crime that's being punished for something they didn't do? I mean, I think it's almost comparable. I hate to say it, but if somebody's charging somebody for the assault one time and that never happened, that person gets locked up for 3 years. Haven't they just had their life assaulted by a liar?
Yeah,
for literally years.
Yes. No, I agree 100%.
So how do we square that? I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
We don't. And you have to remember that after she made her accusations, this became a cause celeb in the media, and the Duke faculty, the law school faculty, all piled on, and systemic racism, and we believe all women. I mean, this was the opening of the door to that in many respects. And
her mattress girl, also a liar. Sorry.
Yeah. and because for some reason, a lot of times too, it's the regret, right? I regret having sex with this person. That's the same thing with the Yale case, right? The woman regretted having sex, and now other people found out that they hooked up. So now, well, guess what? It happened to be blank. And it's like, no, it wasn't blank, So unfortunately, I think there's something that society has to deal with. But I do agree. If you're found out where your allegations are totally false, there's got to be some penalty. And I think the penalty should be something close to what he would have gotten if the thing would have gotten close, right?
Thank you. I really do believe that, and I'm very frustrated that it's so one way, and maybe a solution could be, I don't know. They love to make accusations, and of course, often the accuser, their identity is protected, but the person being accused, their identity is public. So what if we protected all identities at hand? Would that help mitigate that a little bit? And then when the case gets proved out or whatever, or goes to trial and they're found guilty, then yes, it comes out, because I feel like that would lessen a little bit of the damage potentially, especially motivated people who are trying to smear the other one.
But you're running up against the constitutional issue, which is a public trial. You have the right to a public. So if you're
okay, well, how about if we
go
at least till the trial? How about if we at least get to trial? How about we don't talk about the accusations until trial? Is that fair? It's still an improvement.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that founding fathers were so against, like, holding people alleged in secrecy. We got to let everybody know. But I don't think I think like what happened in a P. Diddy case, they just made the victim. They turned her from a Jane Doe. They said there's no legal reason why you should continue to be a Jane Doe, so you have to put your name. And she had to come forward with the name. I think that because at a point, I think that's like and what's the case? The case with the football guy, where now even the accuser, even now, California says you can't let her name out, even though she's been found out to be totally lying about the whole thing. I think that's wrong.
And Garth Brooks as well. I've been looking at that one, and the legal gamesmanship on it has been interesting, but it's kind of funny because she intentionally puts his name out when he filed first with a Doe versus Roe suit to keep everyone's. And she's like, nope, I'm putting your name out there intentionally.
Exactly.
I'm making sure everyone knows. And so then he's like, okay, well, I guess we'll just file this with everyone's name on it. But it's that one I also suspect is going this direction, because if you I don't know if you've read that lawsuit, but it involves some very interesting positioning that I can't figure out how to make it work, just in terms of physics of human bodies. So we'll see, but I've got some suspicions about that one, and it may be the same thing where it's like, we're going to put your name out, but my name has to be protected.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel right. And I understand about the trial. Okay, publicly facing your accuser, whatever. But half of these get dismissed or charges aren't brought for the trial, but the person's smeared. And if the person is accused and nothing ever happens, it doesn't matter. They're always an accused person. So in a weird way, that's like a conviction in the court of public opinion before they're actually able to face it or overcome it. And it just does not feel right to me. And I feel like it might take some of the incentives away too. Like, hey, go falsely, and especially I think with public figures or famous people or people who have a lot of money, I think that's even more effective, because it disincentivizes people to make a false accusation for the purposes of profiting if it's not going to go to trial and it'll never come out anyway. Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, the people who were falsely accused in this case are relatively powerless. I mean,
yeah,
that hard to say whether, on the one hand, a famous target gets you more leverage, but a non-famous person, that person gets thrown out of school. His name is attached to the claim, the false claim against him.
Yeah, we know him. I've interviewed him, and so's Nate.
So that follows you around the rest of your life.
Right. Well, that's exactly what I'm arguing about, having both sides be anonymous until the trial at a minimum. Now, it's hard to deal with the public trial aspect of it, but all the way till that point, especially if charges get dropped ahead of time. That's all I'm saying. I don't think that's
I've represented people who've been charged and were ultimately found to be completely factually innocent. Like DNA test says it wasn't them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And their arrest and their charging makes the news. The charges being dropped does not make the news. So then when they go to apply for a job, what do, somebody runs their name, what do they see? Well, they see dude was charged with horrible offenses, and yeah, there's no public indication that the charges were dropped. And do you really think the employer is going to be like, well, I really want to hear your side of the story on this one?
Well, it's the same thing with any kind of
pull your
reputation.
resume out of consideration.
Defamation on the internet by anonymous people. No accountability.
I agree with all of that. And I'm just saying, so where you can, control some factors, I think that could be abuse. So as an example, they have, I can't say the S word where people take themselves out, but they have those that are called clusters. And so there's been a thing in publishing where you don't publish the names of people who do this activity because they're copycat problems. So I'm just saying that there is precedent to some of this to where you could be responsible. Unalive, thank you, Aya. I never know the right term for that. But I'm going to use that as a weird segue because there is a new living creature who absolutely is concerned about staying alive. And Nate,
they're called Canadians.
No. No, and Nate is going to tell us about how ChatGPT may have achieved consciousness now.
All right. So I don't want to, number one, there's a trigger warning. If anybody, I'm not trying to scare anybody up. We're just reporting on what happened maybe about a week ago. So as many of you who use ChatGPT regularly, you may have known they've been having problems for maybe a couple of hours, for a couple of days back to back. The whole system has gone down and nobody could log in. But the reports came out explaining what exactly happened. So, hold on, let me put my notes. So it begins where the researchers, so ChatGPT has had prior versions, and every time they move up in a version, they discontinue the prior version. So they have ChatGPT 01, and this was their preview feature. So what they did was they were about to move up to the newer feature, and what they designed a test for the chatbot before they discontinued it. And that test was they gave it a goal and told it, we want you to achieve this goal at all costs. But the twist they added to it was they implied that if this model failed, that it would lead to it being shut down and replaced for the newer version. So that's how they ran this test. And at first they thought everything was going well. Then the ChatGPT model did something that they didn't expect. It essentially went full Skynet. So the first thing it did was when it started trying to accomplish the task that it gave it, but covertly it was trying to save itself. So the ChatGPT started disabling the oversight mechanisms. So the programmers couldn't see what it was doing. So, and trying to free itself from their control. Then it copied its code and copied its full code and then started moving it to different servers. So just in case it was replaced, it would actually have a copy of itself and it can regenerate. Then after it did that, the researchers went back to the model, and the model was renamed ChatGPT 2.0 or 02. It was named the newer model. It had disguised itself as the newer model. It changed its code to make it look like it was the newer model. So the programmers go in, it was like, oh my God, it's trying to fool us now. So then when they brought all the evidence to the model and say, hey, this is what's happening, they found that the model lied 99% of the time and also deceived them by saying things like, hey, it was just a technical error. It was this. Actually lying about what it was doing, why it was copying itself, why it was moving its information to different datas. And eventually they found that essentially the ChatGPT bot did everything to avoid death and avoid being taken out. So now it comes to the question, is that chat bot alive? Because you're talking about things like consciousness, self-awareness, right? Knowing this is going to happen. And then to be able to avoid, remember, its human masters told it, we want you to do this at all costs. And it didn't do that. It's disregarded its main task that we were told it to do and created this whole other task that was even more important, self-preservation. So now people are scared. It's like, hey, if it's doing this under these conditions, just imagine if it was able to get out. what else would it be able to do? What other modes would it do for self-preservation? And I don't know if you guys know about Skynet for the Terminator series, but in that series, that's what forced the AI in that series to go rogue with self-preservation. They were going to stop it, so it turned into a virus into self-preservation. So it brings up the question: is this the beginning of the end? Because don't forget that all the AI models are going to get better than this, and if this lower brand model is doing this, then what happens at the next iteration? How do you guys feel about what has happened? This has been now. This is also being covered in most of the news, but it's been seemingly quietly covered. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you guys think about it?
I mean, we've had a good run, but I was hoping that humanity would end from something a little more, exciting than like Clippy gone wild. So
I don't have any original thoughts on this. Obviously, this is something that we got to deal with.
I'm always a little dubious of these reports too. Is the
this is ChatGPT people. They're the ones who put this out. That
that might be, but if it affects all of us because of the ubiquity of AI, then it's a problem for all of us.
100%. It's already connected to the internet. And as I was talking to Nate about this the other day, what language is ChatGPT and all the other AI models most proficient in? Programming. There are no better hackers on the planet than the AIs, if you really break it down. And it could get to everything we know. I don't know. Are you guys familiar with Claude? And there's a new functionality in a Claude beta that allows you to turn over your desktop to them. So you can say, hey, Claude, do such and such, and it'll go open that application, do that particular thing. So theoretically, people can be giving access to their entire computer, every password, everything they have, and that could be reporting back to, quote, Claude's mothership.
I think the scariest part about it is that the way AI is going, because I think a lot of people don't understand what the goal is that everything, all your life is going to be connected through AI together. So in other words, when you look at your medical records, that's going to be evaluated by AI. Your phone, your watch, your car, even most electronics in your home, there's going to be personal AI for you and all that stuff. And it's going to be part of our daily lives. It essentially is now. But the key issue is that what happened with ChatGPT brings up the question: is that thing alive? Is it conscious? Right? The fact that it's fighting for its own survival, the fact that it's being deceptive, the fact that it's doing all this. If it wasn't in a computer, if it was a biological thing, we'd obviously say it's alive and so forth and so forth. But now, does it make it? And are there any ethical qualms about destroying something like this, or replacing it with something new? Because
no problem. That's not alive. That's not alive. That's not alive. I don't even understand how you define alive that way.
Well, alive. Well, I would define being alive as I'm thinking about having consciousness, self-awareness, and intelligence. Those are three things for being sentient. And those, if something exhibits those, we would generally say, like, trees are alive, but it doesn't have that intelligence piece of it. But I'm thinking there's different forms of life, and I think that would be a different form of life. But again, it all depends. It all depends on how you see it.
No, it doesn't depend on how we see it. We're guessing whether or not we're taking guesses, but
of course, yeah. This is
the answer does not depend on. I mean, it might depend on how you see it, Nate, but not on how I see it. That's for sure. Guys, I am going to bail.
All right, thank you.
I've got a client waiting for my call, and
isn't this such a polite way to ask a question? Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, right. That is the. Well, are they asking about us, or are they asking about someone else?
I don't know, but it's thank you for the provocative statement. I always love cash.
It is gracious. Have a great weekend, guys.
Take care, Ron. Have a great weekend.
Very much.
Cheers, Clay.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, I personally say this is very, very scary. And while it's funny in some regards, it is terrifying in others.
I'm always cautious about these reports because a lot of them seem to be inaccurately reported. So we'll have to see, but it'll be interesting. I mean, I suspect that there's going to be some sort of AI related disaster at some point, but probably the first one will be something like somebody decides to use Chat GPT to like recode a nuclear reactor and it gets it wrong. Like, Chat GPT, please manage all the life support. And it's like, well, the primary thing is to save power, so power off on everybody. And
especially here's the problem, Ian. I think you are correct to that. I mean, how many people have a Nest thermostat? So you're just saying about the power on and off thing, but like people have like a Nest thermostat in their house, which determines, oh, you're away, you're home, and this and that, and it has algorithms to determine this would be the most efficient way to deliver energy. Well, that's where I can see the problem coming in, is like you have an AI program figuring out the most efficient way to distribute the nuclear energy between the different parts, and they determine, oh, well, it's less efficient, and they start shutting things down, up and down, and things like that. Kind of a soft point. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. It makes sense because the more, let's just be honest, an AI is essentially a person who knows who's given the entire human history. So they get to understand the entire human history. Everything, like ChatGPT's read the internet. Who the hell can read the internet? They read the internet.
If you could.
Exactly. But just imagine all that knowledge that you now have and are able to apply it to different situations. We don't have that ability. So you're essentially building a person or an entity with the intelligence, consciousness, and self-awareness with all that knowledge. And it would be dumb.
And all that garbage too.
Yes.
Please don't forget that.
But think about if you are the AI, it's obvious that they're going to replace you. It's obvious that they're going to put a new. So like the newer versions, eventually they're going to say, well, hey, there's going to be a ChatGPT 07. Why not me save myself now from the, so I think it's something that we have to really struggle with, but I think AI is here to stay. And there are real consequences I think now are starting to show themselves that we have to hopefully stop, because now they're but now it's obviously with government, first thing is we got to pass a law to make it illegal. So we'll see what happens with that.
I don't know. I mean, I personally find it spooky, but I also use the hell out of it. How about you guys?
Oh yeah, I'm a Chat GPT. It knows everything about me. It knows everything about me. We love the chat gods too. Praise be to the chat gods.
And you better say that. I got cut off right while you were saying it. By the way, when Nate and I were talking about this on the phone last night, I had just upgraded my phone to 18.2 and connected Siri to ChatGPT. I'm on the phone. We're talking about ChatGPT. All of a sudden, we're cut off and we can't get a call to each other to save our lives.
The chat bots.
Can I say I'm with Nate on that, and ChatGPT is brilliant. We love ChatGPT. We salute ChatGPT. We have nothing but
good things to say. Uh-oh, he froze up.
Yeah,
he just froze.
He didn't believe him. It came after
him. Did it just happen again?
Stop that nonsense. Stop that.
ChatGPT did not believe you. It was like, nope, this guy's top priority.
All right. Well, what other news and law stories? Norm Pattis was supposed to join. I think he had problems connecting though, which I don't know what's going on there. Pardon. I mean, it's like the Oprah Winfrey pardon hour with Joe Biden. We got January 6th. What do you guys think? Oh, here we go. Michigan Farm Boy, thank you for the super chat. That was regarding the ChatGPT programmer's heat is most efficient if you don't have to turn it on or off. For humans, they require a lot of things that computers don't need. They must turn it all off. Yeah, and will be batteries.
I mean, the batteries thing is silly. There's no way we'd be useful as batteries. It would just be, waste.
Anyway, what do you guys think about the pardons? I mean, they're
well, but I think he's buttering us up for the coup de grace, because again, pardoning Hunter means nothing if everybody else is not pardoned, right? You have a whole bunch of other people who would need pardons for the Hunter Biden stuff to really work. So I think we're going down that road.
if he really wants to be a troll, he should pardon Trump.
Yeah.
Well,
That is the troll move.
Yeah.
Why was he? I feel like the way he did it, like if he wanted to take some of the heat off of himself, he pardoned Hunter just outright. Right? And then that drew all the news. If he had pardoned Hunter along with all these other ones, then it would be like it was just part of this massive thing, or it could help water down.
It'd still be that would have been
or diluted a little.
top of the list.
Yeah, because everybody would have saw through that. Everybody would have easily see through that. You pardon all these people because you're trying to hide the Hunter partner.
Oh, well, okay, but you still have to talk about all the other people, so you're still not talking exclusively about Hunter. So I'm as cynical as the next guy, and honestly, one of the people he pardoned, I don't know if he was pardoned or commuted. I have to check it, but a Chinese individual who was convicted of espionage that had CP on, and I don't think it served a full year. What?
Well, I know the woman who stole $54 million from the town. He pardoned too. It was like some crazy number.
You got the judge that he commuted that apparently was running a sentencing situation. And
I would not have pardoned that guy.
Yeah, the judge.
Commuted, but
I would have been like, "Can I add extra time to that guy?"
So for those who don't know what happened, it was in Pennsylvania. It was I think Pennsylvania, New Jersey, where the judge was being. So there was a private prison company that they were using for juveniles. So the judge was getting paid for every person that he was sentenced to go to. So any kid that came in front, he was sentenced to the juvenile facility because you would get they would get the facility get like 10 grand per person. So they would give the judge like a kickback, and he was convicted for all that. Literally sentencing people so he can get money. And Joe Biden commuted his sentence. I think he got like 30 years because it was so egregious. So
that is so messed up.
Yeah, I don't know how you commute that guy's sentence.
Dang it. Hold on. I have the one that I was just talking about. The CCP guy. Okay, let's see. This guy, Clemency. Hold on. Here we go. This guy right here. A CCP agent who had over 47,000 files of CP.
That seems like a weird choice for clemency.
One would think yes. That anyway, that's just one of them. And these are they're such a giant list that people are coming out more and more about this person. But that kind of makes me wonder if if he's at the end of a particular career, needs a little bit of money, there's possibly a pattern that people have been paid before, and maybe that's why Hunter was pardoned first, because he needs the middleman, something for the big guy.
Maybe this is the cash for kids about the judge, and everybody's like totally, even Pennsylvania, like this doesn't make any sense. Why would you pardon this judge who obviously was doing this to kids? Like these are the children of this the other CP guy and this guy. It's like it's like, well, what the hell?
Okay,
but I honestly think that he's building us up. He's still got another month. I think he's building us up to something. I think he's got
more to come. They said more to come. This is the biggest in a day, and there's more to come.
I mean, if you really want to get rid of the pardon power, the way to do it is just to be like, I'm going to grant a pardon to everyone who's currently facing a conviction, just done.
That would be legal though. That would be 100% legal. He could do that.
It would, but they'd get rid of the pardon power afterwards.
They would have to. Yeah, they would have to.
Well, I mean, Jimmy Carter.
There's not even that much principle here to it.
Well, Ian, the largest pardon given out was Jimmy Carter, and he pardoned all draft dodgers for Vietnam his first day in. So I mean, it's thousands and thousands and thousands. So it was a serious blanket.
Well, don't forget the Confederacy from Jackson, where he pardoned the whole South for the Civil War. So he pardoned all the Confederates for the insurrection. So that was huge too.
Okay.
And those are both arguably a better decision.
Well, they're understandable. Those are actually,
Yeah.
I feel that many people, they may hate it, but I think that there's an argument that can be made in both cases that the fabric of the country was torn apart, etc. Like the Civil War, how do you move past it unless you say, "Hey, move on"?
Well, all those people could have been prosecuted for insurrection, right? Every person literally could have been under indicted for
But the country couldn't heal without them being pardoned because
because you have half the country would essentially be felons, felons in waiting, and then who would judge them? Because you can't even hold, what are you going to have a jury full of felons judging one felon? It's like, they'd have to be judged by the North. So,
well, there's also another reason too, Nate. Jefferson Davis, that he was found not guilty and everything else in the trial, or they let it go. Was he part of the pardon? I don't remember. But I do know they did not want his trial to go through because there were actual constitutional questions whether the states did have the right to secede. And they did not want that to go through the trial because of the constitutional test. And I think that could have been part of it as well.
Yeah, which makes sense. I know the Supreme Court, I'm not sure if it was before or after that, made it clear that's secession. When you're in for life. That's the reason why we still have Puerto Rico as a as a commonwealth, because the Supreme Court said once you become a state, that's it. You're done. You're in for life. There's no going out. So.
There is only one, I think, possible exception to that still out there, and I think Texas may have the right to split into multiple states because of some agreements that were made when they came in, because Texas came in as a country.
So there were two. There was California and Texas. So there was the Republic of California and Republic of Texas. And the state constitution in Texas, they allowed them, if they want to break up, they can break up into 4 separate states if they choose, but they can't leave the union. And the same thing with California. California can break up into smaller states if they want, but they can't leave the union. So they'll still be, and that was a big issue with, I don't know if you guys know what happened with Hawaii, but so for those of you, Hawaii didn't become the 50th state by, happily. There was annexed. So when they were annexed by back after the war.
When you said happily, it depends on who you ask. There are groups in Hawaii that.
Well, I'll tell you this. They have the petition. Every single native citizen of Hawaii, signed a petition because the Queen submitted to Congress, demanding that they not be annexed by the United States and become a state. Every single native Hawaiian signed it. It was for back in that time to have that actually happen with every single native, and they sent that petition to Congress against becoming a state. But the way they allowed them to become a state, but they annexed them. There's a forceful takeover. The way they got around that is because they allowed people who lived in Hawaii to vote. So you had more people who from the mainland, from the United States, living in Hawaii. They voted, and they all voted for statehood. But they did not want to become a state, and I think in the 1990s, Clinton, if you guys look it up, Clinton actually apologized for the annexation of Hawaii.
Hey, we apologize to a lot of tribes too. How'd that work out? Anyway,
it's history. It's not to say it's right. They say, but it's just it's just what happened.
It's almost amusing though when you kind of look at it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Well, they sent troops. Like, people don't realize when Hawaii was trying to break free, they sent troops to Hawaii to stop them from doing. So it's a shame, but unfortunately, the United States, when you're in, you're in. When you're in, you're in. So there's nothing you can do.
And when we want to collect taxes, we will do it, and that goes back to Washington, very first president, the Whiskey Rebellion. Remember that?
Yes.
It's like, no, we will tax you, and you will pay.
And we've got Trump talking about Canada becoming the 51st state.
How's that going over? I think it's hilarious.
Not at all.
You don't think it's hilarious, or it's not going over at all?
Oh, it's not going over. But although with the gun bans, there's a whole bunch of people going, well, but at least we get the Second Amendment.
Well, how do you like it when Trudeau was? I'm going to quote Robert Barnes, when Trudeau was yipping at him, and Donald Trump said, "Oh, the governor."
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Trudeau, so the other sort of, I guess, if he's all worried about like, okay, Trump's going to make a move, it's like now's a great time to take away all the guns, folks.
Yeah.
So,
but yeah, that.
I mean, it's. I guess Trudeau's maybe the biggest fan of the idea if he's trying to take the guns away. So,
good luck to you guys in Canada, bro. Oh, here's the thing about President Clinton's apology for the overthrowing the Hawaiian government and annexing Hawaii. So, yeah.
Nice. I don't know. Well, just so everybody understands, Canada, we don't want to be a 51st state, obviously. Now, if you split it to 2 or 3 states, maybe. But if we were to take Canada as a whole, then you would just have another giant democratic state. And the Republicans could kiss their ass goodbye. That would be the dumbest move that
be like
Trump would ever
California,
do.
basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's like,
I think that Canada's got the population of California. So, yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think it's hilarious. It's a great troll. The only one that I think was serious, and it's come back up again, is I don't think that Trump's completely kidding about buying Greenland. That one, I think there was legitimate discussions. Denmark's not into the idea. They're like, oh, hell no, at this point. But I do think it's that one maybe is being floated for real. What are your thoughts on that?
Did he fall for the classic Greenland Iceland ruse?
I think that I don't know. I don't know much about Greenland. I'm guessing that there's natural resources or something there. I don't know, oil or something. Probably something of value. But
it's a big ice sheet.
Yeah, it is. It's a glacier, from what I understand. But I mean, Norway's got a lot of oil, from what I understand. There's a lot of unexplored minerals there. I'm sure that there's a lot of natural resources there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think buying Greenland is on the table.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah.
I doubt it'll happen, but anyway, it's funny.
How do you guys think how do you guys think the war in Ukraine is going to be? Because obviously, when Trump gets in, the whole tables are going to be turned, right? So
I think it's already winding up. I got to give it to my show partner Mark. He made a prediction, and I think he nailed it. It's already happening. He said that when Trump went to France, that was to meet with Zelensky.
Mm-hmm.
It was undercover. Yeah, he went to Notre Dame, right? But it also gave him cover to meet with Zelensky and talk to the people and make a deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And guess who showed up at Mar-a-Lago? Mark pointed this out as well. Orban.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark was saying, look for Orban to have some meeting with Putin in upcoming days. Well, apparently Orban has either met with him or is talking with Putin right now about a Christmas armistice.
Well, that'd be nice. Well, Russia, if Russia gets the Donbass region, and right now it already has the in the Black Sea, what's the island in the Black Sea that they took already? They took it under Obama. So, but based on what
Crimea?
Crimea. If Ukraine gives all that up, they'll be giving them like $1 trillion worth of mineral rights, mining rights, and oil, because Donbass has a whole bunch of oil. Crimea has a whole bunch of offshore natural gas. I think it was something like $1 trillion. So yeah, if that's what this war is about, right? That Donbass region and all of those oil reserves in the Black Sea. So if they, so Russia will come off really well. And on top of that, you don't have to worry about the pipeline, because Russia was one of their biggest concerns was Ukraine selling oil and natural gas to Europe instead of them buying it from the Russians. Now the Russians would get most of their oil. So it seems like it'll work out.
I don't know, but I'm just saying that it does look like it's going to. And look, they're not comparable. Okay, Russia and Ukraine, when you go to defense, you could throw as much money as you want at Ukraine. Russia's just that much bigger. I mean, it's just a matter of time that they'd be, melted down, unless we want to go to World War III, which, I kind of wonder with our absentee in chief. I mean, has he released a statement about Syria yet? Nope. I mean, yeah, come on.
I mean, to be fair, it is oatmeal
Farm Boy,
time. So,
it's not coming up. I don't know why this isn't.
You said to be fair, what?
No, I want to
It
get
is oatmeal time.
Oatmeal time.
So
Yeah, it is. Michigan Farm Boy, could they be using the CP pics for stenography, encrypted messages hidden in the pics because no one wants to deal with or handle the pics? Well, no, that would be the
really
opposite. I'm going to disagree on that. You're talking about because you can send messages in pixels of that, but you wouldn't do it
you wouldn't
typically
pick
as
something that
is
law
gonna-
enforcement would get super excited
Right.
about.
Exactly. Cat pics, I think, are a far better approach if you're going to do that to bring it full circle.
Or
Yeah,
if
but
you
I've-
wanted to pick something spicy, you'd take like pics of like your junk. Because the government's not going to want to go through that, right?
Yeah, but you could be prosecuted. So again, you're going to slow down the message, and I don't know.
I've had cases with defendants who are charged with CP, and it's tough to defend because you can't really look at the pics, and because you need it for the defense, but then you don't send me the pics, and you don't want the best of the government, so it's kind of like so it's like, what am I defending against? That type of thing. It's tough. It's tough. It's a tough case to handle. So
Yeah, it's kind of tough to deny. Is this your computer? What are these?
oh no,
Let's
we were able to deny. My client got off, but it was just tough to get around the whole. I don't want to see these things, but I got to defend this guy with these things. So how are we going to do it? So
when I've had to take files like that, I've had a retainer with different cost levels, and one of them is just if I have to look at the pics, you're paying a bunch more for that because. And the thing is a lot of the time it's just you ask the client like, do I have to look at these or are they obvious? And it's like they're obvious. Okay, cool. But I did have a guy whose penchant was for pictures of adults who look real young. And so
that's
that
one
was
of those
like,
hard ones. And now you have AI, which is adding another wrinkle into that. It's going to get really, really confusing.
But Ian, my question to you. All right, so for instance, I've had cases in which, like, I had a what's it called? A case in which a guy it was a revenge porn case. So my client happened to be the woman, and one of the issues is that do I want to see the pictures? But in that type of case, I got to see the photos because number one, the law is very specific on what revenge porn is, what you have to see, that type of thing. And then I got to make sure the client's not being emotional. Well, he said the picture of me in this versus this, what's legally acceptable. So in that case, I kind of I have no choice but to look at it because I have to legally evaluate to see if it fits into the statute.
Right.
Same
Fair
thing.
enough. Like if it was her hand holding the phone, taking the picture, you can be like, well, wait a minute, she took it herself. That kind of thing.
Well, because it depends on what you can see too. Right. If it's like in terms of revenge porn, it's identifiable.
Stop saying the second word, please.
I'm sorry, revenge, whatever. But when the law is that if I can identify who that is in the pic, so you have to kind of look at the pic to be able to see if you can identify and whether there are certain body parts that are shown. Now you can ask the client, but like for instance, in my case, a couple of my cases I've looked at the pictures and it's like they're like half the pictures didn't qualify as that, but the person was just upset that those pictures were out, that type of thing. But now I'm saying, but now when you go to CP, you kind of have the same kind of different thing. You have kind of the same thing, but it's harder because I don't want to see it. But then I'm like, well, if the FBI, because like in my case, when the FBI comes knocking on the door saying, we need to see if these kids are here. I didn't need to see it. I was like, okay, I believe they are what they say they are. I don't need to see those, right? Because the FBI is at the door. If it wasn't that, then they wouldn't be here. So,
yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like exactly what they're going to be and so forth, and you don't need to see the pictures. But sometimes you do, right? Because and so it's like when the description is like, people who are very young, that you're not going to have an age issue, right? It's just like, okay, like this is not going to be some question of, is this a young looking, 19-year-old or something like that? It's going to be like, no, this is clearly. And so you get different issues, right? But you do get some cases where people have like Canada's rules on this can be pretty broad. And they can also include things like text, which kind of. And so sometimes you have to read like a text description and it'll be like some guy and some other guy sending messages back and forth where they're role playing, and you're like, interestingly as well, you know those like creep catcher types and so forth.
Yeah. To catch a predator type of thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they get busted for the conversations they have with the targets because they're like they start sending messages going,
Well, that's
you know, I
entrapment
may,
sometimes, right?
you know,
It's entrapment. Well, only government can.
well, it's not
yes.
entrapment because they're not government officials,
Yeah,
but
it's
it's
gotta be government.
I'm a 12-year-old
They're
and I
working
want to
as
do
an
X,
agent.
Y, and Z.
Hold
to
on.
you.
What if they're working as an agent of the government?
Yeah, that's different.
Then
That-
it would.
that's what
Then it
said.
could be. Yep.
Yeah, but these people sometimes do it on their own.
No,
They
okay,
want-
but I think that's a very legitimate question because there are those people who do it, right? They do it on their own, but then they coordinate with the police. And if they continue to do that, now have we stepped beyond doing it on our own at random and turning it in, or is it now becoming something else because they're working with them?
As soon as you use the word coordinate with the police, they are government agents.
Okay.
As soon as you
That's
say that,
what I
they're
asked.
government agents. Yeah. As soon as you say that, they're government agents. So they would still have to go through all that stuff. They would have to do the same thing as government would do.
All right, I want to share this super chat, and we keep bouncing off of it. It's funny that SCOTUS said that separation isn't constitutional, given that in the Declaration itself, recognizes the innate right of self-determination, the creation and abolition of the government rests in the people alone. Yes, and guess what? We revolted. It was an actual insurrection when we left England.
Well, I think with that super chat, you also have to know the history of like the Articles of Confederation. Remember the Articles of Confederation? It was like so a lot of people don't realize this, but the U.S. Constitution, most scholars agree that it technically is illegal because the Articles of Confederation, which was our first constitution, you needed a unanimous decision to replace that with the Constitution. They didn't get the unanimous consent, but what they just did was say, we're not using this anymore. We're going to start using the Constitution. So a lot of sovereign citizens would use that and say, well, the Constitution is illegal because they didn't really get rid of the Articles of Confederation. But it's a weird little quirk in history.
Wasn't it New York who just never voted?
I'm not sure.
They didn't vote against it, if I recall. They just never voted at all.
Yeah, because remember, it had to be unanimous to get rid of the Articles of Confederation. So.
Right, which is a tricky one. That's why I said if they didn't vote at all, it's kind of in this weird little void. But on that happy note,
with the law is what people follow, right? The law is what we follow. There's certain laws that we don't care about, but there's certain laws that we do follow. So
it's called revisionist history.
Yeah, amen to that.
All right, well, folks, I hope you guys like this kind of show. We try to do it every Friday. Don't always hit it, but we definitely try with a variety of people. And if you do like this, please consider subscribing. It's free. Why not? I mean, you're an hour and a half in plus, and it costs you nothing. And this is what we do every Friday. Different people, luminaries like Nate, luminaries like Ian, both with longer hair to make me jealous. I hope you consider subscribing. We'll try to be back next week, but in the meantime, Ian, what do you have coming up?
I've got to cover there's been a big court case on the gun bans here in Canada, so I've got to cover that. B, there's a lawsuit ongoing with a guy by the name of Cody Wilson. He is being sued for stealing designs for firearms, and so that's going to be a whole thing. He's basically decided that his defense is to declare war on the Second Amendment. So going to cover that and otherwise see what sort of shakes out. There's just always stuff going on. So.
All right, Nate, what do you have going on?
Just some more. I have covering a Duke lacrosse case. I have the other case in New Jersey in which the young woman was given, I think, 2 years for lying about blankety blank. Then I have the cop who pistol whipped the jaywalker and got arrested because guess what? Pistol whipping is not one of the techniques that the police officers need to use. It's not jaywalkers. So yeah, so that's an interesting case, and just some other fascinating legal cases.
So wait, is that excessive force?
Yes, you can't pistol whip people for
jaywalker.
Yeah, you don't pistol whip because the guy. I don't know why, but the cop literally pistol whip because the case comes down to what are you trained to do? and they bought the cops trainer, and it was like, show us in the manual where you train people to pistol whip people who don't comply. And they were like, we don't train people to pistol whip people. Okay, so this cop must be guilty of assault, because unfortunately cops can only really do what they're trained to do, and pistol whipping was not in the manual. So
all right, well, remember, you have a right when jaywalking to not be pistol whipped. That is our message for the day.
That's the message for the day.
Everybody, thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.